He was one of the most beloved and well-respected band vocalists of all time. His voice exuded great passion with every note sang on songs. The singer had it all, or so it seemed. But the world would witness another fallen star. Let's take a look back at the music legend that was Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, and find out what actually happened to the former superstar. The singer's childhood was not as good as one would expect on the outside looking in. Despite his mom being a certified nurse and father a decorated police officer, their well-respected occupations wouldn't equate to supreme safety or protection for their child. Instead, Bennington would have to deal with extreme adversity at a very young age. He was sadly taken advantage of in secret for years by an older male. The feeling of shame and fear of judgment kept him from exposing what was happening to those that could help. Instead, Bennington decided to bottle it all up throughout his youth. He started experimenting with drugs and alcohol to cope with the traumatizing experience. But the theme of suffering in silence continued within the school system. Being bullied by other students became the norm for the shy adolescent already struggling through life. The misfortune shaped him into becoming a highly sensitive person and more empathetic to others. His creative side also started to evolve more and more as he grew older. Music became an outlet where he could channel his deepest, darkest feelings and finally let out the pent-up emotions. After high school, he took music more serious and joined a few local bands that were chasing stardom. However, their success would be limited to their hometown and not result to any financial gains. Chester eventually gave up the pursuit and went back to the traditional workforce. The struggling singer really began doubting any sort of worthwhile future in music. But soon he would get a very important call that would change his life forever. When a band started by Mike Shinoda was in desperate need of a lead vocalist, Chester's name was brought up in behind-the-scenes discussions. After receiving the call to audition for the group, Bennington decided to quit his stable job and fly out to sing for the band. Taking the gamble on himself paid off in a major way, and Linkin Park was officially formed. Shinoda and Bennington meshed really well creatively in their long studio sessions. The two leading men were able to bridge together hip-hop and alternative metal like no other. Their debut album Hybrid Theory resulted in multiple singles that topped the charts. The project went on to sell millions of copies for the label. It became one of the first critically acclaimed albums that kicked off the new millennium.
When we were looking to release this record, I was thinking I was shooting pretty high when I said, I wanted to sell 8,000 copies in a week. I thought that would be like something really extraordinary to do. Considering, the fact that we're all just like fans that are just now making it into the music business. We're just like fans that write music and we enjoy what we do.
Despite Mike being a founding member and the mastermind behind the band, it was very clear who was the standout star in the dynamic. Much of their initial success was due to Chester's heartfelt vocals throughout the songs. Millions of listeners really could feel his anger and sadness in every bar. But the band didn't spend too much time just soaking up the life-changing success. They hit the road as much as humanly possible and performed in front of massive crowds around the globe. When the band wasn't on stage performing, they were in the studio working on new material. The strenuous cycle of constantly grinding continued as they really started to make their mark in music. On the surface, things seemed to be a dream come true for Chester. He was experiencing extreme success, developed a massive fan base, and the crew had received a great deal of praise. But in the midst of all the money they made and albums sold over the years, Bennington was still suffering in silence and struggling with his mental health in the shadows. His past trauma, multiple failed romantic relationships, and deep-seated depression kept the singer searching for mental relief through endless bottles of alcohol. Those closest saw two sides of Chester: a lovable and sensitive person, and the other guy who loves to party, maybe a little too hard. But Bennington was very self-aware of the addiction and how unhealthy his lifestyle had truly become. On multiple occasions he attempted to clean up his act and seek professional help. But with the unlimited access as a superstar singer, he would relapse over and over again. Ironically, his career never seemed to be negatively impacted by the substance abuse problem. He was quite functional throughout the years during his addiction struggles. New music would be released often and well received by fans and critics. And the grueling worldwide tours would often go off without a hitch. However, when a close friend and fellow musician Chris Cornell took his own life, it seemed to send Bennington in a massive spiral of sadness and despair. It would be only 2 months later when Chester was found unresponsive in his home.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi there. I'm working. I'm a driver, and
okay.
I just got to the location, and his housekeeper came out and said that he unfortunately killed himself.
Okay, so the person came out and said somebody is, in fact, is.
I haven't seen him. I'm sitting in the car. His housekeeper came up to me and said that she found him dead.
Okay, stay on the phone.
Unfortunately, the musical superstar had too taken his own life at just 41 years old. His bandmates as well as millions of fans were truly devastated when the story broke. Many supporters couldn't fathom why he would do such a thing, while those closest to him suspected he had been dealing with inner turmoil despite the mask he often put on. Chester Bennington left behind a great legacy and is widely considered one of the best to ever do it. But what are your thoughts on this story? Were you a Linkin Park fan? Leave a comment below and let me know.